So I'm going to continue along the theme of creativity, but kind of try and look at that through a slightly different lens. So here at Real Ideas, we're obviously involved in creativity from the sort of arts and that kind of way of looking at things, and we talked a bit about that. We're also very much involved in enterprise, which is kind of about problem solving and getting things done in society. And that's another part of what we do as a social enterprise, and I'm really interested in that. So I'm going to talk about the role of social enterprise in the co-stewardship of nature, what we call community-powered nature. Actually, I'm going to slightly tweak that because I think we've got a shtick, we've got an angle that we're working, we've got a grift. I think that we're trying to make work in the world. To give it a more respectable term, we have a hypothesis or a theory of change. And what has come out of the work with Green Minds and the work with the Future Parks Accelerator and the work with Empowering Places and all these programs in the last few years, we feel that community business, which is a type of social enterprise, holds a particular key and has a particular role in realizing community-led urban nature restoration. And I'm going to tell you a bit about it. Before we do that, though, because we probably need to wake up, it's a graveyard shift, got a question for you, a little bit of a Q&A, and there's been some clues about that this morning and in the introduction and on that slide. So the historic city of Plymouth celebrates a very important anniversary this year. Really important anniversary. It's the year of 2023. What is that anniversary? Anyone tell me what that is? Clues on the screen. Come on. Very good. Thank you, Zoe. Yes. 2023. Come on. You can do it. 2023. It's 10th anniversary of Plymouth being the first UK social enterprise city. And we're really good at social enterprise. So in 10 years ago, in 2013, Social Enterprise UK, which is the national body for social enterprise in the UK, surprisingly, put out this sort of this challenge, this award, this kite mark, this standard, which you can apply for, this badge you can get. That if you have a particularly virulent and exciting and expansive social enterprise sector going on in your place, you can get this mark, and it's a really great thing. And so Plymouth leapt up and said, we want to be the first social enterprise city, which it became 10 years ago this year, and we're celebrating that. So it's a really good thing, because we're really, really good at social enterprise. So we got about 250 social enterprises in the city. And a city of 270,000 people, there's about 9,500 people in all those businesses put together. And with a combined turnover of about 700 million. So it's not a small thing. And what we mean by social enterprise is these are sort of third sector, civic sector organizations. We're interested in generating money through trading, but we're non-profit making. But we use that profit, that surplus, to drive other values that we find really important. So as well as economic value, we're really interested in social value and, of course, environmental value. And we're a social enterprise here at Real Ideas. So that's meant all sorts of wonderful things over the last 10 years. One of the things it did lead to, and came on to, is about 5-6 years ago, we got the opportunity to become a power to change empowering place. Too many places in that. And Power to Change is an organisation that are particularly concerned with this idea of community business. And community business, without getting too much into this, it's a bit of a long debate, is a sort of subsection of specific social enterprise. And it's community businesses and their role in urban nature restoration, which I think is particularly interesting. We think it's particularly interesting. So whereas a social enterprise can be sort of big and all over the place and do lots of things and often work with a community of interest, community businesses are particularly about geographical spaces. They're about hyper-local social enterprises. So if you are a community business, you are locally grown, so set up by local people within the community. You're locally owned and rooted, so you're actually owned by those people in that place. You're about that place. And really, really importantly, which I think is really important to this, you're accountable. You have a level of democratic responsibility accountable to the people in that neighborhood, in that community. And also you're trading like a social enterprise. So if you're one of these hyper-local, hyper-connected social enterprises, you can call yourself a community business. Great. So I'm particularly interested in, because we've had this program here over the last 5 years, and we've supported lots of community businesses. You'll hear from some, you've heard from some already. You'll hear from some more in a bit. And we're going to go and visit some, actually, Stiltskin being a really good one. So our shtick, our angle, is that community business holds a key and has a particular role in urban nature restoration. Cool. So I suppose, stepping back a bit, one of the questions is, why is it important to have communities involved in urban nature restoration? There's probably some obvious answers to that, and some of which we've heard already. So clearly, as we know, there's climate ecological crisis, and we need to respond to that. And of course, big businesses, government, international bodies have a huge role in doing the heavy lifting and moving that around. But as we also know, it's the countless billions of everyday activities of individual people doing lots of individual different things, and those community organizations also have a huge role as well. So we need them involved. It's also really useful in making our places better. So we're interested in placemaking. If we get communities involved in nature restoration, it's about regeneration. It makes those places nicer. We all understand that. It also helps tackle really key issues, really important issues of the day: health and well-being, tackling deprivation, economic opportunities, all those kind of things. So it's really good that we have that happening. It's also an opportunity for organizations like ourselves and other organizations, our community organizations. It's a route to investment. It's a route to improving our assets and buildings and our land. If this is a nicer, greener place, more people are going to come here, spend money here, spend time here. It's really good for engaging people, because actually, as we found out, and as we all know, nature is a really good conversation starter. People love nature and people want to get involved with it. It also thinks things like green skills and green jobs and all those kind of things. Also, and I changed the slide and I sent the wrong slide over yesterday. There's also a danger of inequalities and, I suppose, injustice in this if we don't get involved as communities and we don't jump up and down and say, look, we want urban nature restoration here. And that sort of plays out across the sort of green sector debates if we're not careful about some things. And I think the biodiversity net gain is an interesting example of where this could go wrong. So you see, there's been a bit of evidence of this big sort of landed estates going, we can deliver your 10% biodiversity net gain, you can't deliver it on site in that urban space. You can come and give your money over here and we can make our nice green, leafy estate that's probably walled in, nicer, greener and leafier. So unless people in places like Devonport or Stonehouse, unless we're able to stand up and say, actually, no, we want a slice of this, we want to be involved in this, is there a danger that some of these well-meaning policies can actually drive injustice and inequalities? So we need to be on top of that. And there's obviously public pressure. People, we talk to, and we've been doing some surveying with Zebra and people like that. It's clear that people want greener, nicer communities and urban nature restorations in their places. People want it. And actually, it's a function of policy, such that it is. So even you look at the wording around local nature recovery strategies, we need to mobilize businesses, we need to mobilize government, and we need to mobilize communities. We need communities involved with this. But there are all sorts of problems and challenges and barriers with that. Some really obvious stuff, do communities and community organizations and community businesses always have the capacity, the skills, or the knowledge to get involved with this work? We need to solve that. Obvious stuff around resources, funding, and investments. It costs money. There's also issues around cultural barriers or barriers of unconnectedness. We live in a world of an increasingly toxic political realm, culture wars. This creates all sorts of barriers to getting people involved in these kind of things. And even though I would argue that people have an innate connection to nature, if you're brought up in a grayer, more challenged, ecologically poorer area, you can sometimes lose some of that connection. So those are some of the barriers. There's another set of barriers, which I've highlighted in blue, which I'll come back to why I've done that, which are also quite significant that we need to work around and need to find a way through. Big issues, particularly in this country, of land ownership, stewardship, and access to land. We have hugely unequal in terms of our land ownership and access. Who owns all the land around here? So how do we solve that? There's big issues around sustainability, maintenance, and perpetuity. And I've used this little picture here, which I call the coffin of nature. We've all been involved over the years, over the time, and we still do this kind of work, and but we're having a better conversation about it. Often, what's happened historically, and still happens a bit, is like, we've got a bit of money, let's do a community project about some, do some planting in our street and make it really nice, and we'll volunteer and we'll work really hard for a week, and it'll be really nice for a year. And then next year, who's looking after it? And in a few years' time, you end up with this little coffin of nature they've got here. To be fair, there's actually some nature still going on in it, and actually, that's just you can have a look at it and maybe say a little prayer or something, whatever you want to do. But you see these all around the place, and we've all seen them. We're all really involved in those projects, probably, haven't we? So there's issues about how do we, once we've created a nature intervention, how do we sustain it? How do we look after it? And how is it forever? Because we do a lot of work with buildings, and we might have a bit of land. Maybe we'll do this building, we'll do something temporary on it for 5 years, and then we'll do something else. You can't do that with tree planting. You can't just, plant a tree, and actually, 5 years later, we want to do something else on that land. It needs to be in perpetuity. So these are some of the really big challenges. There's also a democratic participation challenge, because fundamentally, theoretically, we're talking about the public realm, which theoretically belongs to all of us, which theoretically we have a democratic conversation and a right to do something about, theoretically, in a degrading democracy. And we've seen, and I won't go back into the events earlier in the year, but if we don't have a democratic way of talking about the public realm, making good decisions about that, things won't work, and you encounter backlash, or negative things might happen. So unless we're able to take people with us in a conversation about what we're going to do in our own community, that's going to lead to some problems. There's also sort of ecological challenges, and particularly here in Devonport, we have some quite significant soil contamination issues. This was part of the dockyard, and I suppose for the MOD, to be fair, during the Cold War, soil contamination probably wasn't high on their list of decision-making factors. So we have some interesting boron poisoning, which is an interesting one. We'll work with that. But there's also the issue that, and this is the Lawton principles of how you link sites together. So often we'll do a nice little nature intervention, but it's kind of a little island, and actually, therefore, that constricts the nature and what can happen on that space. So, and I've highlighted those last four in blue because I think community businesses, this particular type of social enterprise, has an answer to some of those questions. So what we've got, because of Green Minds, because of Social Enterprise City, because of Empowering Places, because of the Future Parks Accelerator programme, we have a really well-established network in Devonport and beyond of community businesses. And because they are businesses, they own and they steward land. They have access to land. And here's some of them here. I'll talk to you about them in a minute. Because they own and they steward land, they can actually undertake these activities. And because it's improving their asset, the way that they make money and they deliver their service, they are incentivized to maintain it. It can be perpetual. And because they're deeply connected and democratically connected to their communities, and within this partnership, we have people like Hamo's House, which is Drug and Alcohol Daycare Centre. We have DBI, people of colour, all sorts of ways of reaching into very particular communities in a deeply connected way. So we have that accountability, we have that engagement. And most importantly, we have a density of them in this part of the city in the southwest. And so between these sort of 10 to 25 organisations, depending how you define them, which are involved in the Greening Devonport Partnership at the moment, between them and key partners like the local authority and bigger players like Plymouth Community Homes, actually, there's a unique moment where collectively we either own, steward, have access to pretty much most of the public land. And that creates an opportunity to do urban nature restoration in a way that is completely unique, that solves some of those perpetual problems that we have. And that's kind of what we're working on at the moment. So here's a few of them. Hamo's House, which I mentioned, they've got loads of land just down the front. This is one of our spaces behind the column over by there, which we call the post-apocalyptic playground. This is our boron site, which is lovely. This is the Market Hall, actually, where we are now. This came sort of gifted with this place as meant to be the car park for this building. Don't need that much car parking. That's great. Let's do some nature on it. Really great opportunity. Soapbox Theatre, which I hope you'll all go to later on. They've been doing some fantastic stuff in Devonport Park. This is just a few of them. And actually, this is a picture of the building because this estate all around here is owned and managed by a community business, and there's another one similar. So you can get a sense, you have this unique opportunity to work on a strategic plans level with communities to deliver urban nature restoration. And here's just a very quick map that I obviously stole off Google. The green blobs are the social enterprises, community businesses very much involved with that. There's kind of more now, it's ever growing. You can see some of the green space. A lot of that's essentially, apart from the dockyard, but we'll get there one day. We can work across all of that and actually deliver bigger, more ambitious, sustainable plans for urban nature restoration with communities and driven by communities. So, that's kind of it. A little bit about what next, building on Green Minds. We're now rolling out with partners the Urban Nature Development Grant, which is Future Parks Phase 2. Within that, there is a fantastic opportunity to recruit, and keep your eye out for this if you're looking for a job. 6 new roles. 3 of them are natural infrastructure officers with the local authority. 3 of them are community rangers with the National Trust. But they're going to be based with us here in this community and working across those businesses to help deliver that intervention. Working with Zebra and again, Zoe and people, developing this idea of exploring green community hubs. And we're working on the Guildhall, which is our other building over there, which we're sort of repurposing at the moment. And working with Zebra on that. So that, how is that a green community hub? How is that something that drives and informs everything we do? Just got a really interesting research grant with the university. And this is really around, come back to technology, this is about open source AI, e-democracy software. So we can have really broad, deeper conversations with all sorts of people about what we do in our communities. It's repurposing a thing called Polis to work in a particular geography here. We've got a bid in, climate action bid, come on, we can get that. And also this is linked to other key programs. Behind us, the National Marine Park. Over there on the northeast of the city is South Devon Community Forest. If we can root serious community-owned, community-led nature restoration in this part of the city as an epicenter, can you then sort of echo and grow that out over time, connecting across the whole city, creating an ecosystem, a human and ecological ecosystem? So I think that's our shtick, that's our angle that we're working. I hope I've sold that onto you sufficiently well. It's going to go. Yes. So I've sort of hijacked the little tagline for the event over the last few days, which I think was nature-based solutions for cities. Community business, solutions for nature-based cities. Yeah, that's it.